Now, if you look at the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan that we have, the plan is a good document, but emphasis too, in the implementation, emphasis seems to be on the hard infrastructure, on not on human capital. The focus labs that we have are focusing on 3 key aspects: agriculture and transport, manufacturing and processing, and of course power. These are essentials. These are good. But at the same time too, there is need to also channel the same energy on human capital development, because that is what will drive growth, in the future.
Professor,
that is the thinking in the world today, and it's important we key in. For me, that's the major takeaway from the World Bank IMF spring meetings. On the other side, too, of course,
Professor, very quickly, let's change gear. Yeah. Let's change gear very quickly, Professor, because of time, and we're trying to find out one of the events which sometimes get organized has to do with the diplomatic community. Nigeria's embassy or foreign mission opens its doors and invite Nigerian officials and some foreign investors to have some talks. So, and we just launched the what you call our own economic diplomacy initiative. So how do you think this should be pursued across what the government is thinking of across the various embassies and foreign missions, offices and buildings around the world?
Of course, that was the first time it was being organized. And that was a good one. I feel other embassies should take a cue from that. Even though we hear it was not, in terms of representation by government officials, it was not adequate. But at least we've had a good start. From what I read, part of what came out of that, U.S.-Nigeria investment summit is the fact that the people in diaspora now are trying to come up with a union, get themselves together and form a union of investors. So that is that's good. That's positive. And of course, in that summit, I listened to the MD, for example, of Nexim, some governors that were there, trying to also push for investment in their states. So that is something the other embassies, in other Nigerian embassies in other countries should take a cue from. Of course, I also listened to, although that was by the side, the comments by a presentation by the Minister for Budget and National Planning, Udo Doma, talking about what the government has done, the achievements, particularly around the ERGP. So we should have opportunities like that to project Nigeria's image, to the world. The finance minister too was in her best element, particularly when where it had to do with the Nigeria's debt profile and sustainability levels. Yes, in terms of debt to GDP ratio, $18.9 billion is about 19% of GDP. But again, just as the IMF also expressed concern about the debt service to revenue ratio, that is paramount. But what the finance minister has said is that, yes, in order to address that debt service to revenue ratio, we are trying to rebalance, we are trying to retire short-term treasury bills, replace them with longer-term, debt instruments, such as Eurobonds, which are cheaper. So
Professor, let's take a last question.
Will help to bring down the cost of servicing this debt.
Let's take a last question.
It's important that the finance minister, made those clarifications to the international community.
Professor, let's take a last question with you, and this is the biggest question this week. The Nigerian president having a handshake and talks with the U.S. president on April the 30th. That's the had taken us to the end of the month. So the big story for the current week. What's your take? What should President Buhari be telling the U.S. president? What should he be asking from the president in terms of, in particular, business and trade?
Yes, he'll be going to consolidate the gains from the IMF, World Bank spring meetings. The present administration has 3 cardinal programs: economy, security, and corruption. I'm sure discussions with President Trump Trump, when he eventually gets there, April 30, will revolve around economy, security, and corruption, particularly security. We are having a resurgence of, these terrorist attacks, particularly in the Northeast. The President Buhari will be asking President Trump to assist Nigeria in the area of security. We also have read recently that the U.S. will be sending, or is it selling some warplanes to Nigeria. So I'm sure the security will top the discussion. The coming elections too will also be on the table. President Trump will be interested in ensuring that Nigeria, conducts free and credible election, in 2019. The economy, of course, will not be left out. So these critical issues will form part of the discussion when eventually President meets with Trump in the U.S.
Okay, I'm going to give you one last question, and you have less than 30 seconds to respond. Out of all these three, and all you've listed, what do you think should be at the top of what President Buhari will be discussing with President Trump?
Security. Security is critical. Without security, you can't have an economy. Without security, you can't even talk about corruption. We need the assistance of the U.S. in particular to put all these security issues
to rest. That's fair. Very fair. That's your vote, security, and I'm not marking that down. I'm going to ask all my guests throughout this week what should be the first on the agenda. Professor Uwaleke, Professor of Finance at the National State University. Thank you very much for spending and sharing your time first thing on Monday out of the classroom in our studios. Thank you very much. You do have a great week ahead of you. Let's take a break, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen. We'll come back into